In conjunction with other federal, state, and local agencies, the United States Customs Service has successfully concluded Operation Casablanca.
This is Robert Rubin, the U.S. Treasury Secretary, announcing the end of the largest financial sting in American history, Operation Casablanca. But what exactly was this operation, and how did it lead to a police raid that would change the Hells Angels forever? Let's find out. The year was 1995, when U.S. customs analysts noticed large amounts of cartel money moving across borders disguised as legitimate transfers. Cash was funneled into U.S. bank accounts, wired into Mexico, withdrawn in pesos, and redeposited abroad. Every attempt to trace it ended at major banks like Bancomer, Surfin, and Confia. Traditional drug busts weren't working. Cartels' real power was in their money. So customs made a bold move. Instead of chasing the cash, they would become the cash. That decision shifted the war on drugs from streets and ports to offices and boardrooms. So they planned a trap. A small storefront in Santa Fe Springs, California, became its headquarters. They set up a fake import-export firm called Emerald Empire, which was to be run by undercover agents posing as professional money launderers. Through this setup, they reached men like Victor Alcala Navarro and Jose Alvarez Tostado, financial managers for the Juarez and Cali cartels. These weren't street dealers. They were bankers in suits who knew how to move millions without a trace. As the money flowed through Emerald Empire's accounts, investigators quietly mapped the cartel's financial system. It was supposed to be a financial sting against bankers, but decades later, it evolved into the very strategy used to dismantle global biker empires. Escalation, 1997, early 1998. The deeper the agents went, the more alarming the pattern became. The suspicion that was limited only to a few bankers would soon change, and agents came to know that central Mexican banks were pushing cartel profits through branches in Los Angeles and New York. By the end of 1997, U.S. Customs had laundered more than $100 million in cartel money under controlled conditions through a fake company. Enough transitions had been made to build a strong case against the parties involved. But there was a problem. The investigation had crossed the borders, and now Mexican officials were involved as well. Now came the most challenging part, springing the trap without setting off a diplomatic crisis. The sting, spring 1998. By spring 1998, Operation Casablanca reached its decisive moment. After years of undercover work, agents abandoned their small storefront and built something far more elaborate, a fake casino on the outskirts of Las Vegas. They called it Casablanca. On the surface, it looked legitimate, a private venue for investors, a place where deals were made in whispers and champagne. But behind the lights and laughter, every table, every microphone, and every handshake was part of an undercover sting. The bankers arrived as guests of honor. They wore suits, exchanged business cards, and discussed millions in cross-border transactions. None of them realized the walls were recording their every word. When the signal came, the doors locked. Federal agents moved in, and within seconds the room was silent. 28 bankers and more than 100 others were taken into custody, all caught in the act. On May 18, 1998, Attorney General Janet Reno called the operation a roadmap that tracks the cartels from kingpins to couriers to bankers. Treasury Secretary Robert Rubin said simply, "We hit them where it hurts their pocketbooks." 3 of Mexico's largest banks, Bancomer, Banca Surfin, and Banca Confia, were indicted, marking the first time foreign institutions were charged in U.S. courts for laundering cartel money. When the press conference ended, the shock began. In Washington, officials celebrated the success. Cameras flashed as Attorney General Janet Reno and Treasury Secretary Robert Rubin stood side by side, announcing what they called the most successful money laundering investigation in U.S. history. To the American public, Operation Casablanca was a triumph, a decisive blow against the cartels. But just across the border, it landed like a bomb. In Mexico City, government officials watched the broadcast in disbelief. They hadn't been warned, not even hours before the arrests. Mexico's government called it a flagrant violation of national sovereignty. Within hours, the peso fell. Bank stocks tumbled. The country's financial image was in crisis. Behind closed doors, the U.S. State Department realized what had happened. In the pursuit of victory, they had humiliated their closest ally. As Secretary of State Madeleine Albright later admitted, "We won the case, but we lost the country." The storm that followed split the alliance between the two nations. Mexico's foreign ministry filed a formal protest, accusing Washington of violating the 1991 Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty. Their banks had been infiltrated, their officials arrested abroad, and their reputation shattered, all without consultation. In the United States, the reaction was the opposite. Congress passed a 4043 resolution praising the undercover agents and warning the White House never to extradite them. Senator Trent Lott sent a pointed letter to President Zedillo that read less like diplomacy and more like a reprimand. Mexico can no longer remain in denial. Operation Casablanca had crossed a line and both sides knew it. But to Washington, it was worth it. And years later, that exact blueprint for financial infiltration, fake fronts, and synchronized raids would be revived in Europe. Only this time, it wouldn't target bankers. It would target the Hells Angels. The fallout from Operation Casablanca left deep scars. In the years that followed, investigators across Europe dissected every detail of the case. They saw how U.S. agents had built fake companies, infiltrated banks, and dismantled a criminal network from the inside. That strategy became the blueprint for a new kind of policing, one that didn't chase cocaine shipments or cartel bosses, but the money that kept them alive. So when organized crime emerged in Europe, law enforcement didn't have to start from scratch. They already had the playbook. They reopened the old files, studied the same tactics, and gave the new mission a familiar name. Only this time, the targets weren't bankers in suits. They were bikers in leather, and the battlefield wasn't Mexico or California. It was the sun-drenched island of Mallorca, where luxury villas masked the headquarters of a growing criminal empire. An empire run not by financiers, but by the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club. The operation that followed would carry a name the world had heard before: Operation Casablanca II. It began long before sunrise. In the quiet hours of the morning, police vans crept through the narrow streets of Mallorca, Spain. More than 200 armed officers moved into position, surrounding luxury villas, beach houses, and biker warehouses scattered across the island. By dawn, the operation was underway. At the center was Frank Hanbuth, a 49-year-old former boxer and the feared president of the Hells Angels Hanover chapter in Germany. To the police, Hanbuth wasn't just another biker in leather. He was the architect of a criminal network that stretched from Germany to Spain, Turkey, and beyond. Hanbuth had been in Germany before, but when Germany cracked down on the Hells Angels in 2009, Hanbuth and his inner circle fled to Mallorca, Europe's most glamorous tourist destination. Publicly, they came for peace and business. In reality, they came to rebuild. They bought villas, opened nightclubs, and registered companies in tourism, construction, and real estate. Behind those legitimate facades, investigators uncovered a vast shadow economy, a network built on drug trafficking, human exploitation, extortion, and prostitution, all masked behind glossy business fronts. Their most ambitious plan was to build a Formula One circuit, a high-profile project designed to launder millions in dirty money from Germany and Turkey. By the summer of 2013, Operation Casablanca II reached its decisive moment. After nearly 2 years of surveillance, wiretaps, and quiet infiltration, investigators were ready to strike. Across the island, 23 properties were hit simultaneously, including luxury villas, biker warehouses, and beachfront homes where members of the Hells Angels Mallorca chapter had lived like kings. Police seized pistols, sawn-off shotguns, cocaine, anabolic steroids, stacks of cash, jewelry, and fleets of high-end cars. Hidden among the evidence were property deeds worth millions, registered under fake names, part of a laundering network that funneled cartel money from Germany and Turkey into the island's booming real estate market. The operation had first been launched quietly in December 2011 by Spain's National Police and the Guardia Civil, before expanding into a multinational effort coordinated by Europol and Eurojust, with support from Germany, Austria, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and Interpol. It was a level of cooperation Europe had rarely seen, the same kind of international coordination that had once defined the original Operation Casablanca in 1998. 2 months later, in September 2013, the second and final wave of raids struck Mallorca, rounding up the last remaining members of the network. At the center of it all was Frank Hannebuth, the man European police had spent years tracking. He was found inside his fortified villa in Lloret de Vistalegre, surrounded by security cameras, guards, cash, and motorcycles, the empire he had built collapsing around him. After years of dominance, the most powerful Hells Angels leader in Europe was finally in custody, and with his arrest, Operation Casablanca II came to a close, proving that the same blueprint once used to break corrupt bankers could still bring down international bikers. As investigators peeled back the layers of the Hells Angels' Mallorca empire, the true horror came into focus, not the weapons or the drugs, but the people trapped beneath it. Women, many trafficked from Eastern Europe, were forced into prostitution inside clubs controlled by the gang. Several were even subjected to cosmetic surgeries, procedures meant, as one investigator grimly described, to make the product more attractive. At the center of this network were the Yousafi brothers, brutal enforcers who treated the operation like a business. They controlled every part of the women's lives, when they worked, when they slept, and how much they had to earn before being allowed a single day off. Disobedience was punished with violence. What appeared to tourists as Mallorca's glittering nightlife was, in reality, a system built on fear, coercion, and greed. The financial web. The investigation revealed that the Hells Angels Mallorca chapter had evolved into a financial hub for organized crime across Europe. Money flowed in from Germany, Switzerland, Bulgaria, and even South America. Shell companies purchased villas, nightclubs, and land through coerced signatories. People threatened into signing deeds to hide the gang's actual ownership. One of the most notable properties, worth around $2.5 million, was traced back to Frank Hannebuth himself. On paper, it belonged to an associate. The parallels with the original Operation Casablanca were impossible to ignore. The exact structure of fake companies, falsified contracts, and hidden transactions, only this time, the laundering, didn't run through banks in Mexico or Los Angeles. It ran through Mallorca's luxury resorts, construction projects, and booming nightlife. The strategy was the same: turn crime into commerce and hide corruption beneath the illusion of legitimacy. Law enforcement agencies in 17 European Union member states and 6 Europol partner countries had officially classified outlaw motorcycle clubs as a national security threat. Europol's assessment also revealed the scale of the Hells Angels' global expansion. Since 2005, their chapters in Europe had more than doubled, and their footprint in Central and South America had tripled, a rise powered by the same laundering systems and financial manipulation that Operation Casablanca had exposed years earlier. The aftermath. When the raids ended, the scale of Operation Casablanca II became clear. Spanish authorities confirmed that the operation, which began in December 2011 and culminated in the summer of 2013, resulted in the arrest of roughly 25 people across 23 properties on the island of Mallorca. Those arrests included high-ranking Hells Angels from Germany, Turkey, and Luxembourg, along with local Spanish associates, and even one police officer accused of leaking information to the gang. The operation had been coordinated by Europol, Eurojust, and Interpol, and backed by law enforcement agencies in Germany, Austria, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg, making it one of the largest cross-border crackdowns on the Hells Angels in European history. After the arrests, prosecutors at Spain's Audiencia Nacional, the country's high court, spent years compiling an indictment that eventually listed around 49 defendants. At the top of the list was Frank Hanebuth, the former heavyweight boxer turned president of the Hells Angels Hanover chapter, a man German police once described as one of the most dangerous men in Europe. The case became known as the Mallorca Mega Trial. By 2019, prosecutors were seeking a combined 300 years of prison time for 46 accused members, a symbolic total that underscored how seriously Spain viewed the organization's influence on the island. But as the trial finally opened in January 2023, the tone shifted. 35 defendants accepted plea deals according to court records, admitting to limited charges such as document forgery or small-scale money laundering in exchange for reduced sentences and fines. Then came the verdict. On September 26, 2023, after more than a decade of investigation, the Spanish court acquitted Hanebuth and 12 others of the central charge of belonging to a criminal organization, citing insufficient evidence of a formal hierarchy linking the accused across countries. However, 32 defendants were convicted on lesser charges, primarily related to money laundering, weapons, and prostitution offenses. Because of time served, procedural delays, and cooperation agreements, most of those sentences were converted into fines or suspended prison terms of up to 2 years. While the verdicts were lighter than expected, the operation's impact was undeniable. For investigators, Operation Casablanca 2 proved that the methods first used in the 1998 U.S. sting still worked in Europe. Follow the money, infiltrate the front companies, and dismantle the empire from within. Even without mass convictions, the case reshaped how police across the continent viewed biker gangs. A Europol assessment soon after classified outlaw motorcycle clubs as a national security threat in 17 EU member states. It warned that the number of Hells Angels chapters in Europe had more than doubled since 2005, and their presence in Central and South America had tripled, funded by the same laundering methods exposed in both Casablanca operations. The impact on the Hells Angels. For the Hells Angels, Operation Casablanca 2 proved to be a disaster. The Mallorca chapter was effectively dismantled. Clubhouses were seized, local businesses shut down, and dozens of members were left facing criminal trials in multiple countries. The luxury lifestyle that once made the island their playground vanished overnight. The villas, the nightclubs, the cars all frozen under court orders. But the actual damage went deeper than arrests. The Hells Angels' reputation as untouchable took a serious hit. For years, they had operated in Spain under a cloak of fear and influence, blending with the island's tourism industry and using intimidation to silence rivals. Operation Casablanca 2 shattered that illusion. Images of armed police storming villas and arresting senior leaders ran across European headlines, marking one of the most public humiliations the club had faced in decades. Behind the scenes, the fallout fractured internal alliances. With Hanebuth and his top lieutenants tied up in lengthy legal proceedings, power vacuums formed inside the organization, allowing rival chapters, especially those in the Netherlands and Eastern Europe. The Hells Angels' influence in Spain had dramatically weakened, giving rise to new outlaw motorcycle clubs eager to fill the void. Financially, the damage was lasting. Millions of euros in seized assets cut deep into their laundering channels, forcing the club to rebuild its business model across other regions. Spain's crackdown also spurred coordinated investigations across Germany, Austria, and the Netherlands, each targeting the financial foundations that sustained the Angels' European network. Yet, as history shows, every major hit only pushes the club to evolve. Just as the first Operation Casablanca forced cartels to hide behind banks, Casablanca 2 forced the Angels to become even more sophisticated, shifting money through cryptocurrency, shell import firms, and online betting platforms. In the end, Operation Casablanca 2 did more than take down a gang. It exposed how far the Hells Angels had drifted from the open road, trading brotherhood for greed and loyalty for silence. But what happens when that silence finally breaks, and the truth starts coming from inside the club itself? Click on the next video to see how one president's betrayal changed everything.